This is Ward and Al on Canada Talks.
Arthur Simeon is filling in for Ward Anderson, not just today, but all week. All week. It is the Artless and Dormian Show. Now, as I mentioned off the very top of the show, and something that we talk about on this show a lot, is the relationship between the police and minority communities, but specifically the Black community. And most of the focus recently has been on the U.S., obviously, because the very loud, big problems.
Yeah.
But, you know, we do always try to address the fact that we have issues in Canada, too, even though in Canada our thing is to be like, no, everyone's fine here. We got rid of racism a long time ago.
But the only poll said that another people were affected by it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Right.
100%. But so, you know, I'm always interested in how we move the conversation forward and what we can do. And the CBC's The National did something really interesting by asking a Black man to switch places with a white police officer for a day. And that young man is with us today. He is a musician and a motivation. I just lost the ability to speak English.
You were killing it in the first
I
round.
know, I was doing so good. He is a musician and a motivational speaker. Please welcome to the show, Lance Constantine.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
So this idea really came from the CBC. Is that correct?
Well, it was an interesting story. I think for me, you know, as a speaker in the community, I feel like I represent so many different cultures. But it happened about 2 months ago when I was at the office at Humber where I work. I'm a student executive as well. And I was kind of going through my news feed on Facebook, and I saw the murder of Alton Sterling. Mm-hmm. And that really moved me to tears and frustration. And I was really thinking to myself, you know, what could I do to bring some kind of form of collaboration? And I remember in that moment saying to myself, man, let me just go down to a police station and let's just have a conversation. But that kind of ended shortly because who knows, like that could turn into anything. So I left that alone. And then 2 weeks later, I got an email from a community organizer that has believed in me from the beginning for the work that I do. And she said, this would probably be a good fit for what you're doing. I called the producer, and basically it was a story they were trying to do for about 1.5 years. And they were kind of going through a vetting process. And as soon as the producers heard my story and found out what I do in the community, you know, with youth and stuff, they said, this is our guy. So the rest is history, and we went on to do the documentary in September.
And I think a lot of people don't know or don't want to know that we do, and I think particularly in the Peel region, there has been a very problematic relationship between the people and the police because they're still carding there, from what I understand, which basically for our American listeners, it's like the Canadian version of stop and frisk.
It is the Canadian version. It's not like,
yeah.
It's exactly like the Canadian version of stop and frisk.
Yeah. Sorry, I put a like in there. Yeah, it's the Canadian version of it, which is ridiculous and has been proven to be ridiculous everywhere that they were doing it.
Well, while doing the stop or the swap, I actually found out that they did stop carding recently.
Oh, good.
In Peel, which was a good thing that I found out. But there were still things that people, when they watched the documentary that we still brought to attention from the community.
And so what kinds of things?
I guess the main thing was racial profiling. Mm-hmm. Also, how collaboration can be fostered, and looking at ways, because there's one thing to do things, and the officer does mention it in the documentary, that they're, doing things at the community versus with the community. And so that was something that was addressed, but also cultivated to see how we can continue the conversation going forward.
And so what did you learn that day, kind of being in the police shoes?
It was very interesting. I think I was very aware of the fact that I'm not going into this unique opportunity for myself, but it was bigger than me. And I was aware that I would be representing the voices of many, because to get a ride along with a police officer is a rare opportunity. One of the producers actually showed me an article of a young black activist, very educated, that sought to do the same thing and was denied. And here I am getting this opportunity to get a ride along with cameras on me, CBC. So I understood the weight of the moment, of expressing, I guess, some of the frustrations that I had in my younger years, and also the voice of the community, and to see how we can foster a collaboration going forward, because that's what it's about.
Yeah, because sometimes, I mean, this is something we should talk about, is the fact that one of the reasons why it's difficult to get the ride along from the police side of view is your safety. Is because when the police are going around, your own the safety of a civilian riding along with them is in their hands. So like, forget insurance, forget if it's your immediate safety is in their hands, which makes their job that much difficult. But at the same time, in this current climate, in this current situation, the safety of everyone, regardless of whether they're guilty or they're innocent, is brought into question. And so for me, what do you think where is the biggest sort of the gap between understanding between the police, for example, in Peel Region, and the black community in Peel Region? What is the biggest sort of division about right now?
I think, when people watch the documentary, and I encourage people out there to watch it, that is voice, and you'll see the different opinions from different officers. One of the questions that I ask is, do you believe that racial profiling exists? And the response of one officer says, yes, that does exist. And then I ask the same question to another, and the answer is no. So I think when I met Adam, which is the officer that I swapped with on the final day, on Saturday, because we didn't get to see each other. The first time we met was actually on camera. One of the things that I mentioned was just acknowledging that there is something that needs to be addressed. And then from there, creating the right climate to foster collaboration to bridge those gaps. So the acknowledgement piece is a key factor.
Is a key factor, yeah.
And I'm hoping that this documentary, which the responses that I'm getting so far across the country, would be that conversation starter to acknowledge that there is something, and then begin some kind of remedy from there. Right.
Because I believe that I think the biggest problem with policing is that it's changed so much over the years and over so many different generations. But a lot of things are within our society. Like, people always forget that police officers are not born, like, we don't get them from other planets. And they're born in our communities. They're part of us. They're people's dads and uncles and stuff like that. And so the sort of the society, the inbred racism that we have as a society bleeds over into their work, because these are people who just grow up around it. They grow up around it, and sort of when we dehumanize people, and then we give them a budge and a gun and stuff like that, we don't really teach them how to humanize them again after years of dehumanizing a certain group of people just because of, for example, the color of their skin. So when you're out on patrol, do you notice, like, did you notice sort of like with the police, when you're having a conversation with a police officer, do you notice that there's that element of, like, he doesn't see individuals, he just sees like groups of people?
That's a great question, because I was actually in a position where I got to see what officers actually do on a day-to-day basis. They basically get calls every single minute of things that are happening, and on one of their screens, you can actually see the details of the person that they're looking for, and so I got to see that other side of the coin. But the frustration though is that biases do exist, and the stereotypes do exist. And when you put that in uniforms without that being vetted or any kind of reduction strategy workshop of those biases, things can get a little bit tricky. And not to say that there's not good cops out there. The officer that I swapped with was amazing.
Right.
But how many officers are like that?
Right.
Right. And so with the experience that I got, what I would like to see first is the acknowledgement piece to happen a little bit more on both sides of the coin. Right. And also a reduction strategy plan when it comes to racial profiling and biases, so that the job can be done more effectively and people in the community can feel safe.
Right.
That's one thing that I've noticed, is that obviously this discussion for a lot of people becomes really polarizing, because a lot of people seem to think you have to either be 100% pro police or 100% pro, like Black Lives Matter,
right.
As an example. And a lot of people also seem to think that any form of racial profiling or racism is overt, right? And it's this issue of the cognitive biases of things that people don't even know they think, but are in their subconscious over years and years. And that's how they're reacting. And I think the hard thing and part of what should be implemented in terms of making this problem better within the police force is people have to really dig into, okay, what do I think and why do I think that, in order for things to change. And I think that is something that scares the average person, right? They so rarely, I think, do people go, oh, well, yeah, I do assume that about that person. Why is that? Where did am I wrong about that? But it's something that really needs to be put into practice. And the average person needs to be made aware of it, because it's shocking to me how many people don't understand that concept of cognitive biases. And of that, listen, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means somewhere along the way in the course of living your life, you made a false assumption and then it got buried in there.
And it stuck.
Yeah. And it's not about, I think people think that what you're trying to bring attention to is that cops see someone and go, oh, that's a black guy, I'm racist, I'm going to go treat him badly, or I'm going to draw my weapon. When in reality, it's this subtle idea of somewhere along the way, and this seems to be the huge problem in the States, is that there are these people who become police officers who somewhere in the course of their life have made the assumption that black people are more dangerous than white people.
Right.
And so their reactions are different, and that's the issue.
Right. And it's not even a case of just being more dangerous. It's a case of being less than. The assumption is that they're less than, and that's the problem. The problem is that when a police officer rolls up to a situation, it's going to be racially charged and motivated if the police officer comes in thinking this person doesn't deserve the respect that I would give someone else.
Oh,
so
yeah,
when you've seen these videos where someone gets taken down and they have him and they're going to put him in cuffs, but still, get a few extra kicks to the head and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's that dehumanizing moment where you're like, no, this is still a human being. This is still someone, even if they're guilty, someone who still deserves your respect. Because here's the thing, at some point, police officers, and this is not even just race alone, just in general, police was about protecting the community. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, through capitalism and all these other things, policing became protecting a certain class from another class. Instead of about building communities and making sure they were safe and sort of involving people, it just became protecting. So it's like you will find that if you're walking through a neighborhood that's quite affluent, someone's going to roll up on you and ask you what you're doing there if you're a black man. And you could be living there. That could be your home. That could be your neighborhood. So that's the thing that sort of the perception has to change within, like you said, like through the society and then bleed into a police force, but also the militarization of the police and protecting just sort of an elite class, which unfortunately also sort of draws along racial lines.
Yeah.
Right. Like my mentor, his name is Johnny Williams. He's a brother to JYD, Junkyard Dog from the Toronto Raptors. Right. He lives in Nevada, very wealthy family, of course, and he still goes through it because of the cars he drives, right? Mm-hmm. So it's something that it happens everywhere, and to also like bring to the point that you were speaking about, like as far as acknowledging those biases that have been ingrained somewhere down the line. I did a workshop recently for the Boys and Girls Club of Canada, the headquarters where all the leaders across Ontario got together, and I got to speak about the stereotypes and biases. And basically I gave them a chart, and it had just a list of names and things like black man, pregnant woman, teenage, all these different things. And you basically had to write down the first thought. You had like 10 minutes to do it or 5 minutes to do it. The first thought that comes to mind. And then at the end, everyone was rushing through it. And at the end, we all went through, the things that were mentioned, and everyone was realizing, oh my God, that's a bias I have. That's a stereotype I have. Right. So having things like that in place, and that's in the marketplace, in the organization, and those things could be transferable. Having those things in place for police officers as well, so that they know what they're actually, the biases they do have. Right. And then create a retention strategy or some kind of reduction strategy to, I guess, reduce those things so that when they go out into their jobs, they're more objective and not subjective to their biases or, that we all have. So
what a great exercise.
Yeah, it's cool.
Smart. We have to take a break. Can you hang out, Lance?
Yeah.
Because I do want to, I also want to get into a little more about the work you do and who you are. We are joined by Lance Constantine. Arthur Simeon is filling in for Ward all week. And we will be back after this. You're listening to Ward Now on Sirius XM, channel 167.
You're listening to the number one duo in Canadian talk radio. This is Ward and L.
Actually, today it is the Artless and Dormian show. Arthur Simeon back again.
It's been too long. I'm glad
it has been too long.
I'm glad we get to do a week of this.
I know.
Yeah. I like Ward, don't get me wrong, but...
No, but...
Yeah.
You're not super best friends with Ward like we are.
Yeah, that's true.
You and I are super best friends. We are joined by Lance Constantine, and I did find the link to the piece on CBC's The National where Lance switched lives for a day with a police officer in the Peel region. So I will tweet that out so everyone can watch it. I don't know if you can see it in the US. I don't know if CBC is one of those Canada only websites, but we'll try it and find out. And Lance, you're also a motivational speaker.
I am, yes.
How did you get into that?
Yeah, I started doing speeches in 2008. As I mentioned earlier, I met Johnny Williams, which is the brother to JYD from Toronto Raptors, and I started my circuit there in front of 800 kids. Ever since then, it's been kind of word of mouth. People been just kind of requesting me to come in and speak to students or conferences or colleges, universities. And then from there, through my career of public speaking, I started a company initiative called Speakers University, where I train people to do the same thing that I'm doing. And our mantra is really to speak publicly and engage civically. And this is why I really partnered with CBC to do the piece that I did, just to kind of show an example to the students that have been through our programs, that this is how you make your voice heard in a respectful way. And so we've been gracious enough to have outlets in the U.S., in South Asia, in the Caribbean, here in Canada, in different parts of the world, where we're just training individuals how to speak. And basically, I have representations out there that carry out our modules and workshops.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, what brought you into this world? Because, and that was a really dumb question.
Yeah.
Your mom? Oh, thank you for supporting that. It was a dumb question, Arthur. But
I mean, I'm a good friend.
You are, but you're mean. Because I feel like, I mean, speaking, you have to really have a message and really want to share that with the world. Is it something that, like, from the time you were young, you felt like you had something to say and you needed to find a way to say it? Is it something that has come as you've gotten older?
I think for me, I'm 28 now. It's interesting. I started this journey when I was 18 years old. And I think for me, I always had a desire to know my purpose in life, and always desired to know that what I was doing was adding value to other people as well. And so I give credit to, my foundation, my spiritual foundation, in Christ, and just, being a minister at my church now has a lot to do with my foundation as a person, which helped me to really personally develop and grow, and just also being around great mentors and friends that have contributed to my growth and family. I have an awesome mom and dad, and my father has been awesome, and I love my mother, my father, because the stigma is that fathers are not around in the Black community.
Right.
But I have an awesome dad that's still here today, and my last name is Constantine. So what he does is, since we were young and to this very point, he always spoke very highly of our name, Constantine, and the legacy of our grandfather, and the responsibility that we have to give back to the community. I believe that those cornerstones have really helped shape me to be the man that I am today, and which led me to, respectfully address the concerns in the community with the police officers in Peel and internationally as well, and also do it in a respectful way where we can foster collaboration. So I give credit to those attributions. And
where were you raised? Which part of town were you in? Like, are you a Toronto kid?
Yeah, I'm a Toronto kid. I grew up in Toronto, and I was raised mostly in Etobicoke.
Okay.
So I went to school around there, Father Henry Carr, so many schools around there I went to. And also from Etobicoke, from that area, Rexdale, I went to a school in Jane and Finch, Westview. And then from there, I moved out to Mississauga, Malton, where I live now, where I attended school in the Peel region.
Nice. And you come from a big family? You said you have, mom and dad, but do you have lots of siblings?
I have an older brother.
Okay.
And I have a younger sister, 4 years apart. So
on each side? Like you're 4 years younger than your brother?
Yeah, I'm 4 years younger than my brother.
And 4 years older than your sister.
Than my sister.
Right.
Yeah, same mom, same dad.
Right.
And so I get to kind of pull from both worlds. I get to pour into my sister. I get to learn from my brother.
Right.
So it's cool.
Did your
I
brother?
just want to say, as the younger sister of someone, you can also learn from the younger sister. Anyway, go on.
Did your brother bully you? Because I have a brother who's 3.5 years younger than me, and I bullied him.
You bully me?
I do sometimes. Yeah.
No, my brother was more like a protector.
Right. Oh no, I was protective of my brother.
Yeah.
But that also meant that I had the license to kind of push him around a little bit when we were kids, because that's what kids do. You just
siblings. I mean, siblings fight. They,
Right.
I think, in our times, especially growing up where we were, I think we had to really survive.
Right.
So.
And are they supportive of you now? And do they?
Oh yeah, they're excited. Like when the CBC thing was airing, documentary, my brother just came up the stairs and just like stuck his hand out and says, "Man, you did well."
Nicely done, yeah. And from a big brother, that's as
That's
good
big,
as
like,
it gets.
yeah.
That's as good as it gets. Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
I like it. No, there's nothing I like more than when my brother's proud of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the siblings never admit when you do good stuff.
It's very like you don't like outwardly say, like, for example, I've told people that I've told most strangers how proud I am of my brother than I have told him, like, to his face. Like, I've told more people, and if he ever brought any of those conversations up, I would deny, like, to his face. I'd be like, I didn't say that. Like, there's no recording. Yeah, there's no recording of that. Yeah,
my sister too. I learned a lot from my little sister. She's like very into business and community stuff. So like even when she was young, she did a lot of great business stuff. Like she created bags and sold them to her friends. Like she's very smart.
Right.
So I gleaned from her too.
Nice.
Yeah.
What do you see for yourself going forward? Where do you, first of all, creating the public speaking module to me is so amazing.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't know. I'd be like, talk good. Yeah, I'm not good at teaching people how to do things. What do you want to do going forward with your life? Keep digging into the public speaking world, or?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, what I've created over the years was an initiative that's really developing leaders right now, and I love that. I love when people watch the documentary, you'll see the students that I mentor, and I love seeing that happen. I think eventually in the future, at some point, I see myself in politics, in government, really adding some kind of change in society. I really see myself heading in that direction, especially being an executive at my school where it was the highest voting turnout in the history of elections. And just, I feel like my direction is, I feel like I'm heading in that direction, especially with what I'm doing right now, advocacy and training people and doing something for the critical mass.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always amazing to meet people who realize that they're going to do more than for just themselves and sort of, like you said, give back to the community. It's always, I'm always in admiration.
I really feel like that way. I really feel that my life is really not my own. Like, I feel like my voice, my experiences is for the collective, and that's why the CBC project and me being in that position and getting that opportunity, I already was equipped to know that this is not about me. This is about others. This is, I have my frustrations and things that I've been through, but this is more than just Lance.
Right.
This is about the people. And so.
And going back to the swap in the documentary, do you feel like this has moved the relationship between the community and the police at least a little bit in the right direction? Do you feel like the officer that you swapped with sort of got it and was going to take something back to the rest of the officers?
Well, we did agree on the day that we met for the first time on camera, which is on the documentary piece, that of our experiences, but we did agree to talk about what we can do going forward. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's 12 hours of footage, right? So it's only 17 minutes in a documentary, but we did talk about, doing potential school tours, community work, where we're bringing that. And I think that hasn't really been done as much. Mm-hmm. And so we did talk about that. And, this documentary, since it's been released, one of the things that I really love is that it's creating a conversation. And, there are conversations going on right now that I may never be privy to, but I'm happy that this documentary is creating that, because from conversation comes revelation to make change. So I do believe things are different now, and the response that I'm getting, things are when I say different now, I mean it's acknowledged and it's on camera, and so it's a start to create collaboration going forward. So I'm happy about that.
That's great. And I think, yeah, collaboration is what's needed instead of continuing to divide everybody into separate groups.
Yeah.
Bring everybody together a little bit and try to.
Yeah, because that's the only
all
way you
be
sort
better.
of can have progress is if everyone is joining the conversation, everyone who's affected on either end of any sort of issue.
So
Yeah.
this is like my call to action. This is just coming to mind, but like, those out there that are in the police force and the community, this is like a call to action of really, why not create, even if it's just a school tour where, the community, is collaborating with the police officers and creating some kind of regeneration training for younger people to see that. So like what I'm doing with Adam in the Peel region, I would love to see replicated across Canada and around the world, across the U.S. is, why don't a police officer join together with a community organizer, someone that has a voice or influence in the community, and go and start into the schools, because that's where most of the children and youth are, and create workshops where that collaboration is fostered instead of just doing, one basketball event, one-offs, but you create a continued conversation. So that's my call to action for the listeners.
That's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And your website is youth-speakers.com.
It's speakersuniversity.ca.
Oh.
And it's lanceconstantine.org. You can find me, or just, I guess we're in the Google age, so just Google me.
I will tweet out your websites and how to find you. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lance.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's really, I mean, you're doing really great work, and I really love the openness to swapping lives and trying to change the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is the Artless and Dormian Show right here on Channel 167, Canada Talks.